Hi, friends. Dr. Nancy Trimbley here, putting the power and knowledge of your health back in your hands. I'm going to screen share today because the Delta variant info is in. Now, I stole some of these photos from one of my favorite YouTubers, which is Dave Rubin. He has the Rubin Report, and this was a newscast from Australia. And in Australia, what they were reporting was about the Delta variant. This is just from the last week or so. They have a record number of tests that they've performed of 82,000 people. Of those 82,000 people, 111 new cases with one death. Actually, to me, those numbers sound really good, don't they? I don't know what percentage of that. Somebody can calculate that out there, but it has got to be less than 1%. This newscaster, then went on to say that because of this, because of the 111 cases out of 82,000, retail shops were to close. Essential workers were to stay open, but all construction sites were to be closed. Can you imagine the effect on Australia's economy? Now, to be fair, this is just in Sydney, but it's one of the largest cities in Australia. She goes on to report that there will be a lockdown in Sydney. 900,000 residents cannot leave, even to go to work. Wow. Does this logically make sense to you? To me, this sounds a little crazy. Is anybody really looking at the numbers? So I want to share some other stuff with you. You know, I'm a fan of Worldometer. I've been reporting from Worldometer since the beginning. And we've been hearing about California. Los Angeles specifically recently reinstituted the mask rule after just dropping the mask mandate. And I wanted to show you some of these graphs here. Now, right here, this is the number of daily new cases in the whole state of California. And this is back in December and January. Here we are through the spring and early summer. And here we are about today. And this is the daily cases. Now, if you look at this graph compared to here, ooh, you know what, when they talk about maybe a trend is forming, okay, maybe there's a trend. Okay, maybe. But let's scroll down. So that's the number of cases, and how we determine a case very often is if they test positive with a PCR test, which, you know, there's some questions as to really if that's really accurate, or if somebody is presumed to have COVID. Now, here we go, the daily deaths in California. Here we are, the same time frame. This is December, January, and here we are today. Do you see any difference really from the rest of the spring and summer? So people may be testing positive, they may be sick, but do you see the death rate the same as it was 6 months ago? I don't see it. And this is what I've been used to tracking this from March of 2020. But you might say, oh, Dr. Nancy, it's just one county. It's just really one city in California. Well, let's look at something else. Let's look at Missouri, because St. Louis has been in the news too. And again, I went right to the daily deaths, and you see on this chart, there is virtually no change. Actually, it's lower right now than what it was back in June and in May. The rates are increasing. If you look at the rates of daily new cases, look, there's our graph, and there are more cases, but we're not seeing the death toll. Interestingly, and this is if you believe the study, for the annual flu, they say that about 36,000 people die of the flu. Now, I'm gonna say that's a faulty study, because if you look at the original work that told us that, they lumped flu with pneumonia. And the actual first study was flu with pneumonia every year kills about 36,000 people. Well, if you've known anybody that's been at the end of life, pneumonia very often is what ultimately takes them. But let's put that aside. 38,000 people versus in Australia, or sorry, 36,000 people versus in Australia, 1 death, and they're on lockdown in Sydney. So you might say, oh, Dr. Nancy, well, what about Australia? So I have the Worldometer for Australia. And here we go. Now here's the daily cases. Now you notice here's a trend. You might see a trend. There's an upward trend. There's a lot of cases, not a lot, but there's a trend where it could be a lot of cases. But if you go down here to the daily deaths, nil, very low. So are we going to let the powers that be tell us, put your mask back on? Are we going to let them tell us who's essential and who's not? Are we going to let them tell us that we can't talk with our neighbor or have a party or have a gathering or celebrate a wedding when this is the reality of it? I'm just asking you, please look at the actual numbers. Stop reading just headlines. The media has been working against you your whole life. So that has not changed. Look at the data, draw your own conclusions, turn off the news, and go hug your neighbor. So I hope you're well. Bye for now.